going to be talking about how to start a drone company in Australia. Straight off the bat, Ty, have you got something you can show us?
Yeah, sure can.
Legend.
So I've got up here the Know Your Drone website for everyone listening at home, not necessarily watching. It's a pretty good resource for basically when you start right out. Obviously, you've got the ability to review all the rules, which that'll come up in a second. Got lots of videos and lots of explanation on the rules as well. Maybe you guys want to throw in a little bit of a quick run through some of these rules.
Yeah, it's probably this. I think the first one I got there is the 120 meter, the max height, which I think is actually 400 feet is the one that the compliance is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, correct. 400 feet AGL.
Yep. And I think we might park the 30 meter away from. Is that the 30 meter away from people? That's a whole nother topic, isn't it?
Right there.
Whole episode right there. And obviously one drone at a time. So that's clearly something that everyone should pay attention to.
Exactly. And a lot of us are males and can only do one thing at once. So one drone at a time, guys.
Yeah, if you think you can
it's much safer that way. I've actually got a good example of that in my video storage too. I'll have to bring out one day for Dummy of the Week of 2 drones and what can happen. So we'll leave that one there.
I look forward to it.
But yeah, obviously to keep the visual line of sight. It's obviously a paramount thing for what we do. It's the only way of really remaining safe and legal as well. And obviously the populous areas are important.
Mm-hmm.
What were you about to say today?
I was about to say, would you be able to explain the visual line of sight rule a bit further?
Yeah, sure. So it's pretty straightforward. You need to be able to maintain a visual line of sight with your drone at all times. You can't have this thing miles away where it's completely out of view. You need to be able to see it, or you need to have spotters there that are able to see the drone. Otherwise, it is technically an illegal flight. To do beyond the visual line of sight, you need to have special approvals to do so at this current point in time. But yeah, you need to be able to see this thing at all times.
And FPV goggles, can we wear them and maintain line of sight?
Well, no.
Unfortunately, no.
This is why Casa doesn't like FPV drones.
I've heard
I think you made a good point, Ty, as well with the visual line of sight, is that you as the operator technically don't have to have eyes on the bird. If you've got other team members that are on the other side of the building that you have direct communication with, that is still technically, you've got visual line of sight of your drone. So
would those operators have to be in communication with the pilot in command?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
like radio or phone or something.
Radio or on your phone or something like that. But yeah, as long as
a clear line of communication.
Clear line of communication, and then once it leaves your visual line of sight as the person with the remote in your hand, and then the other operator or your spotter is on the other side of the building or structure or bridge or whatever, they've got visual line of sight and they can communicate to you if you're too close, too far away. That's still within keeping visual line of sight.
It's always good to know.
Yeah.
Also, one thing I might add as well.
It has to be able to be seen. Yeah. Sorry, I was just going to say it just has to be seen at all times by either you or your spotters. It can't be off in its own world doing its own thing without no one seeing it at all.
You also need to be able to orientate the drone's direction unaided as well. So if you're flying it, hypothetically, say 500 meters, you need to be able to tell which way the drone's facing. And I don't really think any of us can see a Mavic Mini that far away.
No.
No.
Definitely not.
All right. Respect personal privacy. Did we talk about that already?
That's a hard one. I think that's a hard one.
No, we haven't.
As well. It's a pretty.
It gets into the Privacy Act there, which is pretty intense.
Yeah, and it's very opinionative, I guess, depending on.
Yeah, it's a bit of a grey area, that one.
Yeah, like where do you draw the line if you're real estate photographer and things like that. Like, how
Talk
do
to-
you do those?
Unless you're
you
talking
with
to
that?
every single
Yes.
neighbor, that's pretty much the only way of doing it, like
Yeah.
legally, essentially,
Yeah.
which we all do, we might add. We talk to every
It's
single
definitely
neighbor.
something. Yeah, it's definitely something that has come up a lot over the years, especially doing real estate. When you're chatting to neighbors, and they are always concerned about what you're doing, what you're filming. But that's why we have to tell them. That's why I have to sit there and go, hey, look, we're putting a drone up in the air. We're taking some photos of this property. Look, you may hear it, but we're not peeking at you around the pool, basically.
I think common sense, like you said, go have a conversation with them and let them know.
It's easier to have that conversation than have a yelling match, within 5 minutes of launching a drone.
Yes.
While it's in the air, that's always fun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think as well,
Last
if you
thing you
are
want
doing
is
sort of real
distractions.
estate- yeah,
Yeah.
distractions. Have a sign with you. Just put a sign out saying drone operation. A basic A-frame sign makes you look
Mhm.
10 times more professional, like you're supposed to be there, over someone that's just flying a drone for fun. So,
Yep.
if
And
you
you
don't
add
put it
some
out-
witches hats and a high vis vest at the same time, and
That's
you're like,
exactly right.
And no one questions you when you got that high vis on.
high vis on, they walk away. They just go, oh, this is
No.
serious business.
high vis is access to everywhere.
Yeah.
Backseat to any concert, no worries. High vis and a pizza box, you're sweet.
Yeah.
Oh man, I've got some stories from gigs back in the day of when I was working as a photographer with high vis, but we'll leave them for another conversation another time.
We should totally chuck that onto a uncut, unseen, unedited safety tie segment. So the next one is
There'd be some definitely no safe moments there.
Ooh, no comment. So our next one is, if your drone weighs more than 250 grams, you must fly at least 5.5 kilometers away from a controlled airport, which generally has a control tower at them. That sounds like a lot for someone that's just got into drones.
Just stay away from airports.
Yeah.
Probably the best way to say it.
That.
Well, where it
Yeah.
says
The
controlled
basis
airport,
of that rule is stay away from airports.
Don't be in the news.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
Yeah. Don't end up like those ones in Heathrow that were like, I think it was twice in a matter of like a month or two last year,
Yeah.
wasn't it?
didn't
Where
it
they
work out to
both got up and shut down the entire Heathrow airport, which just does my head in.
didn't that work out to be a police drone or something? Or
Yeah,
one of
it
them?
worked out to be the police.
Oh,
One of them was, but the other one wasn't. The other one, I'm pretty sure from memory, was a recreational pilot just being a bit of an idiot, from what I remember.
why of all places? But that's another story for another day.
So
Heathrow.
do we use something like an Open Sky to check where the airport locations are, perhaps, or any other apps
I don't.
we can
Yeah,
recommend?
most definitely. And I think you guys would remember that we've spoken about that. I think back in episode 1, or was it episode 2? Actually, we did speak about Open Sky, didn't we?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's definitely an app that I recommend most recreational pilots, or every recreational pilot really has. I mean, we use it professionally, and I think to a recreational level, it's your one way to guarantee at least you know where airports are, where you can and can't fly. Any other possible dangers in the area usually come up on that, so it's definitely worth having.
Yeah, and even that one, Danny, you mentioned last time, is the OK #2 Fly.
Yeah.
On the web browser. That's a good one as well.
Yeah. They're all good. They give you essentially a green light or a red light. It's like, yes, you can fly. No, you can't fly.
Yep.
There is other instances where there's helipads and whatnot, but it generally breaks down to an easy bit of information.
What makes you aware what's surrounding, right? That's all.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think
Um,
Open Sky, you can choose what class or category you're going to be flying under as well. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Recreational sub.
Yeah, you can.
kilo, then
Yeah.
You can
Reoc
select
com.
either. Yeah,
Hmm.
and then it'll tell you, yeah, yes, no, maybe. And then it breaks it down even more. If you're a REOC holder, you can only fly
Yeah.
here if you've got the REOC and approval, or you follow your guidelines or whatever it is. So
Yeah.
there's a lot to get into.
Yeah.
Well, actually, this backs onto the next point as well. Okay to fly also includes your hazards, like say fires and bushfire reduction burns.
True.
Which the next point on here is,
Yes.
remember, you must not operate your drone in a way that creates a hazard to another aircraft, person, or property. Well, if there's a fire, a lot of the time they're dumping was it the fire retardant on top of on the fire? You don't be flying drones around there. And I
No.
remember
Yeah,
when we
or,
had those
or
massive
water
bush-
bombing. That's the
Yeah.
other thing.
They come in low and fast.
Yeah.
Like the 2019 bushfire.
We
that was-
actually have them. Yeah, we actually had same thing. I think it was actually still in 2019, but it was up here. We actually have a dam not far from where I live, and the water bombers were flying over that. We actually got to watch it, which was pretty cool. They fly over, they grab the water, they go straight back over and drop it. And there was 3 helicopters, I believe, running back and forth for about
they are
2.5,
loud.
3 hours, putting the fire out.
How beastly
God,
they
yeah.
sound.
And I'm telling you right now, they would. Oh, they're nuts, and they fly very, very low.
Yeah, like
So
they're well
it's-
under the
yeah,
400 foot.
yeah. You definitely don't want to be in the air when they're flying around. That's for sure.
Hmm.
And you got to keep in mind, you get if a helicopter hits a drone of any size, maybe not the 250 gram,
But
but
it's done.
you are putting other people's lives in danger, and it's not just the pilot; it's also the people that it will
Exactly.
crash into. You know,
And anyone
there's-
underneath the helicopter.
Yeah. So there's
Seen enough mov-
big problems.
We've seen enough movies to know how much damage a helicopter flies at when it falls out of the sky.
Yeah. Exactly right.
Jerry Bruckheimer movie.
Definitely.
On to our next point. You must only fly during the day, and you must not fly through fog or cloud. I've seen some pretty good videos of over Sydney Harbour in the fog.
Mhm.
Looks great, but I don't know.
Yeah. See, I don't know. I think depends on the thickness of the fog, right? If you can maintain visual line of sight of your aircraft,
Through fog. That's an interesting one, man.
well, it might just be really thin fog. It might not be like, it might just be like a mist, and you can still see all your indicator lights. You can still see everything.
right.
I was trying to photograph fog the other day. I missed.
Oh, very good.
No, I'm serious. I didn't
Dad
fly.
joke I've ever heard,
I like that one, Danny. Good work.
Man, I've been holding on to that one since
Uh,
episode 1.
Dad
Yeah,
joke level, I love it.
You wrote that one down. I know you
I did. I've got it right here on my screen next to me.
did.
Squeeze it in somewhere, guys.
Oh dear, that's a shocker.
So our next
All right,
point-
well, we can
so
go
should-
on to the next one as
Should we
well.
break down fog, thin fog, wide
Thin
fog?
fog, thick fog,
Or is that another topic? Danny?
really thick fog.
guess if you can still keep line of sight, I guess the fog isn't thick enough, right?
Yeah.
Not fog.
um,
It's just
I reckon it'd still be pretty hard in a light mist to see a white phantom in the air.
absolutely.
So
Oh,
even
and
with
it comes down
lights,
to
so-
common sense. You know, if you're flying
Yeah,
a
obviously,
Phantom,
yeah.
it's different. But if you're flying an Inspire or a Matrice 300, it's different again. So, just common sense, people.
Common sense isn't common these days.
There's no such thing as common sense.
Oh. I think we've already kind of covered the next point where you must not
Yep.
fly your drone over an area affected by public safety or emergency operations. That's pretty much about fires and whatnot. You can check your OK to fly sites, and it'll tell you if there's a fire or any emergency operations.
Mm.
Sean, do you want to explain the next one?
Oh, sorry. I was going to
Okay.
ask, what if you got contracted to map a car crash scene? Is that
I think
are you
that
exempt?
because they actually are the emergency operations. I don't know. DJI publicly shows that they fly over
True.
crash sites.
Very true.
Wonder if they're real crash sites. Um,
Who knows?
I'd be curious if anyone knows any police that would like to come on board, or anyone, emergency services. Actually, we
Yes,
were talking about that before the episode, weren't we?
Mhm. Yeah,
Yes.
It would be a good one to actually go.
that would be a good one. They'll probably do it in house anyway, so they get the exemption.
Yeah, true. If you're anywhere near a helicopter landing site or small aerodrome without a control tower, you can fly your drone within 5.5 kilometers. So how do we define the controlled and uncontrolled airspace?
You gotta check your airspace.
Air
use the
traffic
apps.
control tower.
Yeah.
And yeah, obviously finding it on the apps.
So
I think any time you're about to go fly anywhere, you got to check the apps, no matter who you are and what you do, especially recreational.
Mhm.
If you're just going down to a park, I know you see it all the time. You see people whip drones out and they're like a couple of kilometers away from, Moorabbin Airport or something like that, which is a controlled airport, not supposed to be flying.
Hmm.
I know it's probably, you know, not the end of the world, blah, blah, blah. But if something goes wrong and your drone fails, you're potentially putting people's lives at risk. So
Hmm.
at the end of the day, it's always comes back to what risk and liability are you prepared to hold, because that drone has a serial number, has flight records, and it knows exactly where it took off from, everything like that. DJ, I've got your information. So it's inevitable that you're going to get caught if something goes wrong.
Yeah. A good point to note that you mentioned.
And probably just worth noting.
I got you. Go, Ty.
You keep going, Danny.
I was gonna say.
All right. Yeah. All I was just going to say, it's just probably worth noting that because it just prompted me when you said about parks there, Brendan. I know in Queensland, for example, there is actually in Brisbane, there is actual designated parks for people to go and recreationally fly a drone and practice and learn how to fly, because end of the day, it sometimes can be hard to find spaces where you can legally fly and practice your maneuvers and all of that stuff. But I know I can't say for New South Wales and Victoria. Obviously, you guys might have a bit of a better idea. But I know definitely in Queensland and in Brisbane in particular, there is several parks where you can go and fly recreationally and practice your skills without having to worry too much if you're in a safe area as such.
That's pretty awesome. Is that a council initiative or is it state?
I'm pretty sure that's a state initiative. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm pretty sure that's a state initiative.
Definitely worth looking into then. I know New South Wales doesn't have anything. I can't speak for the Melbourne guys.
Well, I know Geelong Council's quite good, where they've actually, you can just apply for a permit online, and within, I think, 24 to 48 hours, you get a permit.
That's cool.
As long as you do that, which is really good, because for us, most of the, most parks, you can't really fly, as you all know. So you need to have a conversation with the council, and every council is different, right? So typically nature strips, pedestrian walk access, parks, local parks, you can't take off and land. So I think most people don't realize that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Sean, because at the end of the day, when you really break down the rules, it is almost impossible to just go and take your drone and fly, as if it's not within your own backyard and you're not going up above other people's homes and you're staying lower than your fence. Because when you're going out into a public open space, then you're going into populous areas, then you're flying within 30 meters of people, all those other bits and pieces.
And it's council-owned land.
Yeah.
So
yes. So like on the Sunshine Coast, for example, they actually made it illegal to fly over any Sunshine Coast council-owned land if recreationally, and in some cases commercially. We do have a RC airfield up here in Coolum, and they basically encourage you to go and fly your drone there. But again, it's something I don't believe I've ever heard of them enacting. But it came into effect, I believe, at the start of this year. They actually expect you to get special permits for certain flights and things now, but from council, not from CASA. But yes, like I said, I haven't heard of it actually being enforced as such at the moment. I think it's a bit of a blanket rule just for them to pick and choose when they want to enforce it, to be honest.
Is that even taken off from private property as well? Is that if you take off from private property as well?
No, that's where the loophole. Okay. No, so in Sunshine Coast, private property is fine, but as soon as you're off private property on council land, technically it's legal.
Yeah, I think it's the same here. A lot of the time we just avoid dealing with council unless we have the correct permits. When, say, hypothetically for real estate is private property, because a lot of the time you do require council permits. To, you've got to set up your bollards, your cones, witches' hats. And we all know how much Ty loves his witches' hats.
Yeah. they're stunning things.
I think
you'll never let me let that down. No,
I'll link that video in the description. Trust me.
I think the best thing to do is call and chat to the council and or get online, look at your local council, and see what their conditions are. It shouldn't be. They're being quite friendly. They're also learning a lot themselves. So best just be open before ask. Don't try to ask for forgiveness. That's not really going to work too well lately.
Yeah.
So,
Forgiveness can be expensive.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yes. Can be very expensive.
And I guess the last point for us here, which actually will lead us onto our next topics. If you intend to fly your drone for work or just commercially, there are a few extra rules you must follow. You need a remote pilot license or to fly in the excluded category, which is a sub 2 kilogram or private landowner. Which is going to lead us into the next topic of what licensing do I need, guys?